figuring out budget that works. And right now we know it's hard, that it doesn't work for a lot of people, especially with the lifestyles that they might have, the cost of living, the cost of everything going up. We know that it is a cycle that is buying time, if nothing else, and bleeding the American people of what they are able to do, and maybe taking away the American dream of actually owning a home or being able to do certain things in their life, right? That's a hard pill to swallow for me. It's something that I think actually has to be dealt with and talked about, because it's going to happen regardless, right? You can't postpone it. If you're constantly bleeding, you need to stop the bleeding in order to heal. Otherwise, you're just going to bleed out. And that's kind of what's happening right now with a lot of people. So writing down a budget, writing down what makes sense, find out what you can sacrifice and what you need to sacrifice is huge. Let's talk about something that a lot of people don't know. Let's just talk about, you own a home already. We kind of talked about, that's kind of more, rent versus own and what should I do, and just general basic knowledge of like a budget, right? That we just talked about, right? And by the way, there's no rocket science behind it. Literally write it down. It's as simple as it can get. Plus and minus. Here's what I make. Here's everything that costs me. That's, is this amount more than this amount? If not, I need to adjust this amount. Is that pretty straightforward
pretty
enough?
Simple. Debits and credits. Go back to your simple accounting. Yeah, debits and credits. Yeah. For yourself.
I ask you to validate if it's simple enough, because my wife tells me that I don't explain things very good, so I want to make sure.
That's as easy as it gets. Yeah,
plus minus.
Don't spend as much. How do you do that?
Very simple. Very simple. Easier said than done? No, it's not easier said than done. It's very easy to do. Sorry guys, I can't go out tonight. It's not in my budget.
Right.
But let's talk about something else too. That we talk, that you talk a lot about too. Right now, what kind of blended rates are we seeing between, you got people that have a home and they have a low mortgage interest rate, and they have credit cards and they have car payments and they have student loans, they have everything else going on too. What is a blended rate?
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, most people have their rates pretty low if they have a house right now. 2020 to January of 2022, they were 2%, 3%, 4% for most people, right? So very low. Now they're 6 to 7, a little bit higher, right? But all the credit card debt, the school loans, the installment loans, your car payment, your HELOC that you got. I mean, I get it. Nobody wants to lose a 2% interest rate. But if you have $80,000, $100,000 worth of credit card debt, that's at 22%, 25%, 29%. If you look at your bill, your statement that you get from Discover or US Bank or Chase or whatever, look at the bottom where it says 29.99% interest rate that you're paying on that credit card. Factor that in as a blended rate with your mortgage. That 3% is not a 3% anymore. If you combine everything together, a 3% with a 29% interest credit card, that'll bump your blended rate, your overall debt that you owe. Think of your debts as that overall thing you owe. Go back to your budget where you just looked up there. And you're throwing your mortgage along with all your credit cards and everything in your spending budget. That's what your payment budget is. That's what your interest rate budget is that you're spending every month. That's closer to 6, 7, 8. We see them up 10, 12, 15%, depending on how extended these credit card debts are. So your 3% is not a 3%. In the sense. So
it's different obviously on a $5,000 credit card versus a $300,000 mortgage, but if you actually use the right calculator, you can find the actual blended rate, I'm guessing, for that, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, 300,000 owed at 3%. You can add that with 5,000 owed to Chase at 25%. Add your car loan, you owe 25,000 on your Chevy at 6%. Add that in. So all the rates and all the amounts you owe are added up at the rate that they're being charged, and that's your blended rate altogether with all those debts. So that's a true testament of what you're paying overall monthly as far as payment and interest. That's one of those things that people don't like to look at. Like we just looked at the budget right there. People don't want to move to the little condo. They want to keep their nice apartment. I always talk about it because it's just the shock factor of you just plugging those together and the averaging. It's not really realistic, and it's a hard pill for people to swallow, but at the end of the day, I always tell people a lot of these lower interest rates, most people are going to sell their house. They're going to refinance. They're going to need that cash out. So I wouldn't look at 30 years as 30 years. That's always another topic as well. Paying off your house. You talked about good debts and bad debts. This is a debt that most people are not going to pay off in general over the 30 years. So I always urge people to think in a different way. It's always a mindset thing. To look at things in these different ways.
When I talk to people, it's like, do you care about now? Do you care about the future? Do you want to balance it out? What are your plans? What are you trying to do? The blend in the rate together to get things taken care of now is, like I said, it's great. You don't want to give up, but you don't have to. And it's not for everybody. If you don't have debts, if you know how to budget, if you're actually living in your means, this doesn't apply to you. You're already on the higher end of the spectrum or the scale of understanding that. So it doesn't make as much, it doesn't mean as much to you. But who we're talking to are the people that are constantly struggling, constantly upside down, constantly not understanding, and only, holding the trophy up in one hand and sulking and crying on the other side of it because it does, they haven't found the balance in their life. And that's kind of what it is, right? You have a low something here, but you weren't able to control the rest of it. So it's really high up here. And when you blend that together, where are you really? Telling you, like, I'm not what I think I am. Maybe, no.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Is that
not? No, it's people are just stubborn. People don't want to lose that good rate. I know people that are going in, they're missing credit card payments, missing car payments, blowing their credit, about to file bankruptcy, but they won't take the $100,000 equity to pay off all their debts. It's hard to paint a picture that's more clear than that, but it is what it is. The stubbornness, I get it. It's like people playing Monopoly and you don't want to give up Boardwalk because it's a great property, but it might be better off that you sell that bad boy or get rid of it or mortgage it back to the bank. So, yeah, it's one of those things that people just can't get past.
100%. And the sad part about this is that I am starting to see it more often where people are losing what they held so much pride for, which is that mortgage, low interest rate mortgage, because they can't control the rest of it. People will actually foreclose and lose everything than try to fix something. People get a savings account and they want to hold on to it. They never want to let it go. But at the end of the day, they're going to lose it all if they don't use it, right? Because they don't know how it works. And the same thing with the mortgage. You have a low rate, but you only look at this side of it. If you don't do something, whether it's utilizing that extra equity, restructuring it, or something that you need to do. I mean, you have to figure out something. The worst thing you can do is postpone anything, right? Like deal with the problem now, chop the head off right now and get it dealt with, because you can always restructure things later. Not everybody's going to understand it or pretend to understand it or want to understand it. And if that's the case, they need to talk to somebody that can help understand it for them because,
it needs to be looked at.
Yeah, I mean, it could be something that causes you a lot more pain later.
I think the overall theme of everything is by budgeting, writing down stuff and putting numbers out there so you can actually see where it's going, how much you're paying, what your actual interest rate is, all those things. It'll really lay it out for you. You can't just think of, I'm doing fine in your head. You need to lay it out there so you can actually see it for yourself. So.
Yeah, I think that's something I even picked up from our conversation right now today is just like writing it down, right? Because even on our example when we were drawing it up, excuse me, I had a different perspective as we were starting to write down. I'm like, ooh, this is getting uglier. This is getting uglier. Holy crap, maybe I do need to write some more stuff down.
Look at that first person. It's like, oh shit, I do want to save. Oh, I do want a emergency fund, but damn, my rent's this high. You really got to rethink things sometimes, and that's the only way you're going to actually think it. You think you're doing well, but you're not doing well. So
yeah, you're doing temporarily well. So I still agree that you want to aim for that first model, emergency fund, short term, long term,
right?
And then there's a phase behind that which is getting by, and then there's a phase behind that which is I'm drowning slowly, right? And that's where I think the majority of people are right now.
It's hard to get out of there,
unfortunately. Yeah. So again, make changes, understand things, learn new things, like learn how to figure out what your blended rate is. Talk to somebody about that, right? Know what it really is. Or if you have, and that doesn't apply just for people that have a home or have a mortgage already with a low rate. That applies to everything. You might have a car payment from 3 years ago that has a 3% interest rate, but your credit cards are at 25% now. Because guess what, everybody? As the market's gotten worse over the last year or 2 years, if you haven't noticed, all those rates have gone up, right? So the average credit card rate right now is what, 25%? On average?
Yeah,
24,
right
25, something like that.
Mid-20s. Yeah, mid-20s.
Yeah, so that's a lot higher than it was 2-3 years ago. Car payments on average are what, 5 or 6% now, not 2 or 3 like they used to be. I don't know too much about those ones.
Yeah, 5 to 6, I would say. Yep. So
there's
it's not
other
cheap
ways
to borrow
to do
money
it.
anymore.
No, and groceries, a gallon of milk is $1 trillion. So
there you go.
There's that. Yeah, don't overthink it. Just literally write down, grab a paper, a computer, or an app, and put how much I make and how much I spend on everything, and be realistic. Don't be saying you spend $10 on groceries a month when you know you don't, or you never go to coffee and you're never going to mark that down. If you go to Starbucks 3 times a week, that's what you do. Put it in there, because write it down as real as possible, because it's easier to eliminate and cross off things and adjust things when you know the real numbers. If you need help with that, reach out. We'd love to help write it down. We have tools, we have resources that help you find the blended rate, get a realistic picture on maybe where your situation is right now.
We can help
and then
make you a whiteboard for yourself too. So
hopefully we can give some kind of guidance, some kind of way to think differently about what you're trying to do, because it's not an easy road. It's usually a longer road, and it's going to take some big changes if you're in a situation like that right now. So we're here to help you out and help, guide you in that way if we can. Love to talk, love to see what you're trying to do. Reach out to us, call us, email us, message us, and we're happy to jump on a call and talk to you.